Spoiler alert, this podcast will be including information regarding the most recent episode of The Wheel of Time on Amazon. Haven't seen it yet? Go watch, then come back.
Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Yeah, I wanna dance with somebody.
Tell me about the Western.
I wanna feel bell time with somebody.
Because you've never been a talker, but I have eyes.
Yeah, I want land as somebody.
She's stubborn, knows her own mind, knows she's fallen for you.
Land as somebody who loves me.
Welcome to Busting Blockbusters. It is an episode where we are covering The Wheel of Time, episode 5, called Blood Calls Blood. And I believe that there's a lot of blood that should be discussed in this episode for sure. My name is Double M.
Double M?
Yeah, that stands for Matt Murdock, and you may have heard two voices there. One of them was not me. I did not double M myself. We have two guests this time around. First of all, it's a voice you're already familiar with on this podcast. He's the guy who likes to play tic-tac-toe on your back with a knife. It's Bubba. Bubba, welcome back.
Matt, I am so glad to be here, and I'm glad we're on video on YouTube so everybody can see that I am an ogier.
Yeah, something like that. And we have a very special guest. There was a person last week who submitted some very, very strong feedback, asking a very, very important question. Or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I don't remember anymore because I can't keep track of time. But the most pertinent question regarding this podcast was, where is Catfish? So here he is. He's not just an ogier. He's an ogre too. It's Catfish. Catfish, welcome to Bustin' Blockbusters, buddy.
Holy cow. I am honored. To be invited to talk about episode 5.
I am so glad that you are here because maybe I finally can find. I've never found an ally in Bubba with my Rand hate. I'm hoping I can find an ally with somebody out there in the world with my Rand hate.
Oh, boy.
And we're going to have some fun with this. Catfish, since you are the guest, reminder, folks, we're going to be spoiling everything about Season 1, Episode 5, Blood Calls Blood. So you've been warned. Catfish, let's start with you and your rating for this episode, sir.
All right. Well, I was going to put it on the triple S scale.
Triple S?
Yeah, step-in self-sorting. But, Matt, when I was talking about my feelings about the show in general, it made me decide that whenever I'm able to join this podcast, I am going to, instead of using the triple S, I'm going to use triple S.
Triple S?
Yes, I am going to judge the show on the sci-fi or sci-fi scale. Is it? In other words, remember the Sci-Fi Network used to do a lot of these kinds of shows back in the day, and then at one point they tried to be cool and they kind of changed their design, and then they were like, I think you were supposed to call them sci-fi. So anyway, sci-fi is ridiculous. Sci-fi is better. So I think actually they've been better since sci-fi. But what I'm going to say is basically, was tonight's episode better or worse than a show you would have seen on Sci-Fi in the 90s?
I got to admit, Catfish, that comes across much better than your the previous podcast that you and I did in tandem for the first and only season of Penny Dreadful City of Angels, where you came up with the no-ma'am scale.
I mean, City of Angels did everything they needed to do in one season.
As in destroy our allegiance, yes.
They did. I'm going to say, and I think this is the first time that I am going to I'm going to judge this episode. I'm going to call it sci-fi, which is good, not sci-fi. This is the very first episode that I thought was better than a random episode you'd see on a sci-fi series in the 90s.
Wow. So on a 10 scale, what would that be?
Matt, this is the first episode that has a passing grade for me. Okay,
Okay.
I'm just gonna go. I think after seeing the costume design, the set design, trying to figure out who embezzled the $9 million an episode out of the $10 million they're spending on it. Matt, all I can do is pass fail, and this is the first one that passes. So take that, put that in your Ogier's big hands, and love it.
All right. Excellent.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi pass. Sci-fi pass. That's an excellent scale to have, Catfish. Bubba.
Matt, I want to. I hate to change up, throw your curveball here, but I want to hear your rating. So we just heard Catfish's, which seems like a middling, barely passing grade. I want to hear your rating next, if that's okay.
That is perfectly great, Bubba, because I was just going to say, as Catfish is well aware from our times of covering Penny Dreadful City of Angels, I can never give anything below a 7. And so, therefore, I'm giving this particular episode what I like to call 8.4 out of 10 double C's.
Oh, double C's.
Double C's.
Yeah, clavicle contusions. Because that's really hard to beat your chest like that. And if I'd have given it a 9, I wouldn't have been as mourning for it as if I was giving it this 8.4. I have to admit, Bubba, the whole problem with Loial, our friendly Ogier, was that I had an entirely different picture of him in my head as I read the books. There was not much description in these books of any of the characters, really. But I did have one of the things that struck me, and not to say too much about the books, but one of the things that struck me is that when Rand first met him in the books, he mistook him for a Trolloc for a second. And to me, this guy looks nothing like a Trolloc. He looks more like some kind of humified Aslan is from Narnia, is what he looked like to me. It just seemed almost a little bit too much over the top.
I don't know, Matt. I mean, it's clear based on the portrayal in this series that Rand is an ignorant hick that should be castrated and then mutilated. So, I mean,
all our listeners. There go all our downloads.
Everybody's gone now.
Immature comment.
Now we can speak completely freely because everybody's gone.
Matt, I think you know where I might end up on the Rand scale here. You know what? I probably should have said this up top, but for some reason, even though I'm a sci-fi and fantasy nerd, I never read any of these books.
Okay.
And so I was kind of excited for this series because it's opened up an entirely new world for me. And so I did not have any expectations. And this was maybe the Ogier. And how do you say his name? Loial?
I say it Loial. Just think of it as a very fancy way of saying loyal. Loyal.
Sure. Already like one of my favorite characters, and this is not a slam. Like just enjoy the heck out of him. And so there's another good thing of like not having expectations. He was a delight. You know, I mean, a lot of people in this world are obviously dealing with a lot of heavy things. So there's not exactly a lot of joy floating around in this story, and he brought some, so it was much appreciated.
Okay, that's fair. That's absolutely fair, Catfish. I probably am in the minority of not liking the reveal of this character. Speaking of being in the minority, Bubba, how did you rate this episode?
Well, I got to be honest. I'm going to be very, very low. I'm going to give this 6, what I like to call double P's out of 10.
Double P's?
That's pissed Perrin. The highlight of this moment was when Perrin leveled up and decided to go to town on the White Cloaks. I loved that moment. Release the wolves. I loved it. That moment was good, but it feels like the show flipped for me. And I hope our listeners appreciate that I'm trying to be honest. I'm not trying to be a hater at this when I go 6 out of 10. But to me, the other episodes that we had watched were really, really good or great, but with just little moments of clunkiness. This episode for me seemed to flip the script, where it went from little moments of good and great to lots of clunkiness. I say this as a non-book reader, and I'm not, once again, trying to, cause hate or just have a hot take, but so much time spent on Steppen, who I have not emotionally invested in as a non-book reader, I just couldn't go there. I was like, I care about the 6 characters, or now 7 characters that you've helped me get invested in, meaning the 4 original would-be dragons, the warder, and the Aes Sedai, and then the wisdom, who also might be a dragon reborn. So those characters I'm invested in, and I can care about them, and I do care about them. But when you introduce a character like Steppen, who I don't have a book connection with, and he felt like, dare I say it, a glorified day player in the previous episode, now I'm going to spend so much time with his grief. I obviously think for story reasons, it's important that we understand how much a warder can suffer when their Aes Sedai passes on. But I couldn't emotionally connect with it. I didn't have an emotional connection with that character. And so much time spent on it. To me, this was the weakest episode of the 5.
Wow. Oh, that's fair enough. Catfish, you had plenty to say in response to me about Ogier. Do you have anything to say, since you gave this a passing grade on the sci-fi scale? Do you have anything to say to Bubba?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I think that is, and I'm loath to say this, I think that's a brilliant point by Bubba. That was, in fact, the thing I was least interested in was his storyline. Way fascinated by the White Cloaks. Holy cow!
Exactly.
That whole thing is just crazy. And then we've got other people. I mean, if we're going to keep these people apart, and it's story-wise, I don't know, when they bring them back together again, but let us have more of this. This guy is frightening.
Oh, yes.
I really wish that. So I'm Team Valda right now.
Team Valda.
And my only wish is that the person he would run into is Rand.
Oh,
and,
no.
And fast.
I love it, because you brought up my very next segment, Catfish. Mm-hmm. It's all about hating on Rand. So let's get into that.
Okay.
And I don't know what order we want to go in here, but during this particular segment, much to the chagrin of most of our listeners, and especially to my main podcast co-host here, we hate on Rand every week. We try to find somebody within the episode who hates Rand the most. So, Bubba, because you loathe this so much, do you want to get yours out of the way?
Matt, thank you so much for coming to me first on this Rand hate segment we do every week. And I hope listeners who are disappointed that I had some trouble with this episode are going to be back on my side when I say I still don't see the hate for Rand. Rand is about 20 years old. He had one episode where he dealt with a relationship poorly, and he shouldn't have done that, but he might be emotionally immature at 20. I'm not going to beat him up about that. So I think the person who hates Rand the most in this episode, if I have to do the segment, I think it's Matt. Matt has this terrible sickness inside him from him picking up that evil knife back in episode 2. And so he hates anybody who's going to take that sickness out of him. So I think Matt is the big Rand hater in episode 5.
Bubba, I totally agree with you. I'm going to save Catfish for last because I think he's best. I think that Matt also hates Rand the worst. But I think you're overlooking some of the clear reasons why Matt hates him the worst in this episode. For one thing, just think about the way that Rand looked at him so judgmentally when he was just trying to teach a kid a lesson to look out for himself. To just look where you're running, kid. You're going to get hurt. And let me teach you that lesson. Also, Rand implying that Matt needed to clean up and rest before seeking the safety of the White Tower. All of these judgmental things. How about taking a perfectly free gift and half eating it before offering it to Matt, and it's got his spit all over it once he does? I mean, we're living in a pandemic, people. You cannot offer something like that. Or if you do, don't eat it first. Offer it to the guy who's sick. I mean, have a little compassion, Rand. I mean, this is clearly one of those things. Not only that, but he invites himself over to the parade. I mean,
Whoa.
Matt's just going to try and watch a parade, and Rand just shows up saying, oh, thanks for saving me a seat. Matt didn't want him there. And then finally, he tells, Matt just finally comes to it, and he's like, I can't stand this Rand guy anymore. If we're channelers, I'm promising you that I'm going to kill you. I promise you that because he says, Rand do that to me, but he's thinking Rand doesn't have the capability of doing that. He's such a wimp. He's such a coward, but I'll kill you. I hope you go mad from channeling, buddy. So that's my Rand hate for this week. Send your hate mail to @BustBlockbuster on Twitter. In fact, send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, and be sure to tweet @the word double, the letters PHQ, for all of that good feedback if you have any complaints about my Rand hate, or if you feel like telling Bubba that he's right and nobody should hate Rand. We've got a couple of comments about that from our last YouTube as well. I'm just doing all of this blustering to save up and build up our good friend Catfish, who I feel has a great deal of hate for Rand. I just feel it. Join me, brother. Join Team Trolloc, the double T.
Who? So the question is, who in this episode hated Rand the most?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was me.
Well,
I hated him the most.
Oh,
I
no.
do not understand what you're saying at all, Bubba. He was a whiny little bee in one episode. He has been a whiny, complaining. I mean, this is his behavior.
Yes.
It's not something that I would accept from an 8-year-old. Forget a 20-year-old. He's so immature. And Matt, I have to ask you, because I don't know.
Okay.
Was he this bad in the book?
Yeah. Not to the near extreme that I'm taking it, but a lot of the story is told from his point of view. And there were always some things that I kind of go, Of course, in the books, he's aged down about 3 or 4 years also. And you're kind of almost like, okay, from a teenager who's just got his license, you can accept that maybe just a little bit. And because it's not even as extreme, but now I just focus my Rand hate everywhere. It's so easy. It's so fun in every episode. If you're not liking an episode, just find a reason to hate Rand. You'll find one. It's easy.
Yeah, he's really, after I saw the most recent Halloween movie, I tweeted out that this was the first Halloween movie that I rooted for Michael Myers. Without any further comment, just because sometimes I'm just trying to see if someone could get it. Because I hated everybody in that movie so much. I've never rooted for Michael Myers. And this is the way I feel here. I might be team triple C's.
Triple C?
Yeah. Childishly constructed Trollocs.
Trollocs begins with a T there.
Sorry. Triple T's.
Triple T's, yeah. Wait a minute.
Terribly generated Trollocs. I think being impaled by the Trollocs is not enough for him. I'm just hoping that he gets his deserved justice from the White Cloaks. He's just, all the other characters have something going on. I don't know whether it was the way that's written and they just emphasized it more, or it's the performance. But I really hate this guy. But who hates me the most from this episode? It's Sepin, because he didn't take Rand out before he took himself out. If you're going to go, do the world a favor. Honestly, to be honest with you, this episode, he bothered me the least. But in every other episode, I have disliked him so much that it's kind of affecting my enjoyment of the series. I genuinely dislike the character.
Wow.
So it's unfortunate. It is. Yeah.
It's unfortunate you're on this podcast.
It is. Blame whoever called me out.
Simon, this is all your fault.
All your fault, man. You asked for it. You got it.
Now, Catfish, it's time to invite you into the in-depth discussion that we do every week regarding an episode.
I love it. Yeah.
It has a wonderful title called Blah, Blah, Blah.
Oh, that's good.
Blah, 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 blah.
And I always just set up as you are well aware from our past experience of podcasting together, I set up a very terrible recap, but Bubba usually adds some funny to it, where mine is lacking. And I'm just sure that you will too. What we'll do is I'll just start to recap events. I've grouped the storylines together, kind of Aes Sedai all together, and also then Rand and Mat, and then Perrin and Egwene. There is the Nynaeve crossover between the two storylines, but you'll be able to keep track, I'm sure. We start off, once again, with another episode of Monty Python's Holy Grail, where Stepan brings out his dead, and we go on to wherever... from there, the ceremony of the burial, Moiraine says, "May the last embrace of the mother welcome you home." I don't know if that was confusing for book readers or not, and I don't know if or for non-book readers or not, and I kind of wanted to explain that rather than people just wondering what it is, because I'm not sure they're going to explain it in the show if it was just a book reader nod. But the last embrace of the mother is a burying tradition, where you don't use a coffin and that kind of thing. Nothing to restrict the earth from taking your body back completely. So that was what that was about. After that, we find out it's a month later. Stepan's very distraught. Even Leandrin looked a little distraught at the funeral. And naturally, it was a man that ended up killing Corrine, so that makes sense. And then a month later, Moiraine and Lan are approaching the White Tower. They're approaching Tar Valon, and they're discussing the kiddos and that they will find them. They then move Nynaeve into a locked up tower for political protection. That's a double P. And Nynaeve doesn't want Moiraine to tell her what she's thinking, but Moiraine decides to anyway. Moiraine also promises that she's going to protect Nynaeve from all of these politics and all of these things within the tower, and she's going to find her friends. Any comments so far from either of you?
Well, before I give my comments, Matt, I'd love to know what you as a book reader thought of this portrayal, this visual representation of the White Tower. Did this city look like you imagined? Did the White Tower look like you imagined? What did you think of finally seeing this monument, this location we've been talking about since the very first episode?
I have to be honest with you, Bubba. They have moved up this location. I think I tweeted to you guys or put in a DM that the storyline is essentially the same, but it actually happens somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
And so you don't really get to Tar Valon until a much later book, which I haven't reread, and I don't remember much in the way of the descriptions of those.
Well, how did you think it looked? And I'm asking mainly because, to me, I thought the show has looked really well on effects. I think the Trollocs have looked great. The fade is scary. It's creepy. I think it's beautiful. But then I saw the White Tower and the exterior digital effects of it, I thought were not up to par. And then I thought inside, it looked too clean, a bit like what I would call the Jedi temples in the Star Wars prequels, where it's like, here's this clean building that looks like nobody's ever been in before. It doesn't look real.
The whole world looks too clean. I mean, the dirt on the ground looks too clean. The people's faces look too clean. It's too clean.
And then I think the lighting did. Sorry, Matt. I'll just give my last bit on this digital effects, but then I do want to hear from you, a book reader, is that the lighting in it, I don't think helped at all. So when they put Nynaeve in this room, the way the room is set up, the way I understand the room is, okay, it's a room with 3 windows on one side, and there's a lot of light coming through them. And then there's a door and a stone wall on the other sides of it. And yet the room was pretty evenly lit. And so it didn't look like naturalistic lighting. And so I don't think that helped the effect either. And so for a show, I've been really impressed with that budget that Catfish mentioned earlier per episode. I just thought the sets and everything didn't look as impressive as I thought it should. I'm brand new. I've been hearing about this White Tower since episode 1. I thought, okay, this is the impressive place. And then I saw it, and it did look almost sci-fi, like Catfish mentioned. So that's my tough take on it. What did you as a book reader, like, did it live up to the magical fantasy world you wanted to see?
I think that's TBD.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, because there's a key room in that place that we haven't seen yet, except in the trailers. And I want to get the look of that up close first. The only thing I can tell you guys about everything looking too clean, this is the one place that should get a pass. Aes Sedai just waves a hand and a magic broom comes out from, Mickey's closet and sweeps all the dust away, right?
Well, then maybe it looks too new. Like it could look clean, but maybe it could somehow look older. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. So.
Well, I will agree with you there, Bubba, because even those statues didn't look quite proper. They didn't look like if Liandrin is telling Nynaeve that they've been there for thousands of years or whatever, it's standing as the guards for the main tower, or for what they call the room that the Amyrlin seat usually sits in. I didn't buy that either, because you would think that those would have looked a little more aged than that as well.
Let me ask you about a story point, though, and this is one I've kind of mentioned on other episodes, and that is the internal conflict where Nynaeve is suddenly doubting Moiraine and Lan again, and maybe she's doubting Lan because she feels a closeness to him and she's trying to protect herself. I don't know, but to me, some of this stuff really didn't make sense. Like, once again, if I'm Nynaeve, I know Moiraine cares about my 4 friends from the 2 rivers. I know that she wants to help them. I know that she defeats Trollocs. I know all these things, and yet suddenly I'm going to treat her bitter. And the show implies that this is because maybe she's a bit afraid because now she's touched the one power, and that can, that could affect you. But to me, it doesn't read as a smooth transition from where we just were.
That is understandable too, and I think that is one of those aspects where I think Catfish and you both will say, "Show me, don't tell me," because basically Moiraine was putting, Nynaeve. It was almost kind of a play to the audience. It was almost kind of meta in the fact that Nynaeve said, "Don't tell me what I'm thinking," and Moiraine did exactly that. So I thought that was kind of funny, but I understand why you have a little bit of a confusion there in terms of that. I think it was supposed to be just a better look into Nynaeve's character in how stubborn she is, and I don't think that she looks at Moiraine necessarily understanding that Moiraine wants to protect her friends beyond the interest of her own investment and what might happen after that. One thing that I do feel the show has done fairly poorly is made Moiraine kind of ambiguous. She seems to be portrayed too much on the side of good. And I'm not saying that she's not good. I'm just saying that if you're going to have characters react to her in that way, then I would think that you would need to do something from her. Again, show, don't tell. You would need to see something from her that might imply that it was worth that mistrust. So I can't disagree with you.
That is a brilliant point. Brilliant point, Matt, because as an audience member, I'm on Team Moiraine. And so when people doubt her, I'm like, are you not seeing what I'm seeing? Hello?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, Bubba, when we did Why the Last Man, and forever, forever we would see the feelings about President Brown as if she'd done something horrible, and we never saw her do anything horrible. So we have this whole political thing that's swirling, and it feels like it's not exactly clear to me what's going on. But as far as Nynaeve goes, my question is it something that you guys have determined, I think it was the last episode or the one before when the barmaid was trying to kill them and she said the 5 of you. Is it understood by you guys that Nynaeve is the 5th person that she was talking about?
The show hasn't explicitly said that, but as a TV show only viewer like you, Catfish, that's what I'm definitely assuming.
Okay.
Moving on?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So naturally, when you catch Hitler, you got to put him on parade, right? So there's a false dragon parade that Liandrin gets some stray radish thrown at her. Steppen got quite a bit of the vaudeville rejection for bringing home just a boot and a cloak instead of an Aes Sedai. And we find out that you don't wear black at funerals in this world. You wear white, evidently.
Oh, that's what I wear too.
You wear white at funerals? It sounds
Yeah,
about
he
appropriate.
just wears white all the time. Before Easter, after Easter, it doesn't matter. His wardrobe is completely white.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, if I wear white, my skin actually looks like it has a tan.
Ah,
It
there you go.
looks pinkish.
Stepan now recalls how he met Corinne and came into her service, and it's a nice, touching little story. If you're into that kind of thing, then Lan tries to tell Stepan.
Yeah, or if you've cared about the characters at all.
Yeah. And Lan tries to tell Stepan that there's plenty of other Aes Sedai in the sea, you know, but he's not hearing it. And then Stepan does his basically his Aes Sedai ring ceremony at a mini Mount Doom somewhere within the tower. And Lan goes back to Moiraine and seeks support after it's all over. That's pretty much the end of that. Obviously, you guys aren't very invested in Stepan.
The only thing I'll say is that even though I'm not a book reader and even though I didn't get too attached to that character, I also was not buying. No worries, there'll be another Aes Sedai coming down the pike. I was surprised that a warder would say that to another warder.
Just swipe right, Stepan. It's fine.
Yeah.
My note on this section was the warders are like Mean Girls. Like when they were saying, "Ooh, Leandrin got hit with a radish," they were enjoying it too much. So that was a little moment that I liked. But yeah, nothing against Stepan or his Aes Sedai partner who passed away. But as a non-book reader, I barely knew him. It's tough to see him go through something like this when I'm not emotionally there.
Understood. I am just maybe one reason, and I can't recall having any investment in any warder other than Lan throughout my reads of the books.
Oh, wow.
But maybe it's just because this particular actor, whose name I still can't recall, but I know it's written in the notes somewhere, so I'll find that when the proper time comes up. But I loved his character so much in the television show Vikings that I'm just glued to this guy as an actor and as a character. And I thought he did pretty good throughout this stuff. And now you guys won't have to worry about it. He'll be done after this episode.
Well, who knows? Nynaeve could get upset again and then bring him back to heal him.
Perhaps so. At any rate, while he's still alive, Stepan decides to get drunk, and then he gets some tea from Nynaeve, who herself tries to offer him a little bit of sympathies. There's no better way of offering sympathy than saying the pain never goes away, boy. So clearly, I love that was kind of a moment from Nynaeve that really that was about her moment at the Beltane Festival when she was putting her candles into the water, because she was clearly very moved. So losing whatever, those adopted parents or whatever, I thought that was a great nod back to the fact that she's never gotten over them. Who knows how long they've been gone. And after that, when he leaves to wander out in the hall, she decides to follow him out, and Leandrin finds her at the statues and offers her own thoughts on men and gives, great gas station attendant directions, a version of directions through the, all the White Tower local spots. Sure, just turn left over there. There's a library, and just go past that. You're at the garden. And did you guys find the dynamic between Leandrin and Nynaeve interesting? Did you feel a little bit of a beginning of a recruitment happening there?
Go ahead, Bubba.
Thank you, Catfish. What I would say is that's what it feels like. It feels like Leandrin is trying to recruit Nynaeve, but there doesn't feel like much there yet. It's a very soft sell. It's not a hard sell. But what I will say is in a moment a bit later on, we learn more about, the Reds don't have warders. And Leandrin's like, they're ready for battle, red versus blue. And Leandrin is a fascinating character. So we have this dark one out there. But what's funny is the ones I fear the most are those wicked as hell damn white cloaks. And then Leandrin looks like she could be a huge problem for our heroes. So I love it when the white cloaks are on the screen. And I love it when Leandrin's on the screen because it implies, oh my goodness, We're going to have some tension. We're going to have some real stakes that I can understand. So Leandrin with Nynaeve, admittedly not so much. Leandrin with Moiraine, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's get it on.
Right on. Catfish, any thought about Leandrin and Nynaeve, pardon me.
I mean, I'm with Bubba. Leandrin and Moiraine. I mean, whoa. And then later on, Moiraine gets a little talking to by her friend. They've got a little bedside chat, and she's like, girl, that's what ladies say to each other, especially powerful ladies. Girl, if you don't want things to be taken over by Leandrin and the Red Ones, you better stop tripping all around the world. I still feel like I'm and maybe it's just there were things going on, but I still don't quite understand. Maybe you can explain it to me. The full nature of their disagreement as far as how they want to move forward.
That's interesting. I don't think that that's been spelled out completely yet, but a good portion of their tension is the fact that Leandrin, to me, is just looking for political gain, and that means, the Reds, given their job, they do a lot of traveling and that in terms of like looking for false dragons and that kind of thing, bringing them back for trial, except Leandrin didn't do that this time. And I think that she feels like Moiraine has, it's brought up a couple of times in this episode, how Moraine's been away for so long and these kinds of things. And I'm wondering if there's not some kind of a little bit of a resentment for that, because it feels like a good portion of the sisters outside, if you're traveling to battle, if you're green, you travel to battle like they did to go get Logain, or if you're or if you're traveling to gentle, or at least bring somebody back for gentling, then that's your Reds. But all your blues are supposed to represent justice. To me, that implies trial.
Okay.
And so you would think that their place would be more at home, where Logain was supposed to be brought back for his trial. So that's what I think happens there. The problem is that the show hasn't really explained any of this. I'm just kind of throwing all of these thoughts into your head, Catfish. Well,
right. That's what I mean. If you're, I mean, there's usually, if there are political machinations, it's because people. It's not just for power. It's because I want our group to try to achieve these goals, and your group wants to achieve different goals. And so that's what I wondered if I had missed that by not paying close enough attention to the show. And she has this sort of, holy war against men. That would make sense. I mean, it's clear.
Maybe she is assuming.
At least it's been clear what Moiraine wants to do, is that the idea is we're not going to get rid of the Dragon Reborn. We're going to foster, nurture, and remake the world.
Now, Matt, do you assume when this character, and I'm going to butcher their name, Suan Sanchez, something like that?
Swan Sanchez.
Okay, yeah, I totally butchered that. So sorry, give it to us one more time. Suan Sanchez.
Think of it like the frozen dinner. Swan Sanchez.
Sanchez. Okay. Well, do you think they'll give some of us non-book readers more of this once that character shows up?
I think that it's very likely that we're going to see a lot more of the politics being played when this character shows up, and that it's not going to be that far away.
Yeah, I would assume so as well.
Now my most pressing question is, what the hell frozen dinner are you talking about, Schwan?
Oh, yeah. Schwanson's frozen.
No. No, there's a delivery service in Missouri, and I don't know if they're out there or not. I don't think they're national.
Never heard of it.
Okay, Schwan delivers. It's one of those old-fashioned trucks that brings meat and frozen things to your house, and you buy them on subscription.
No. Out here in LA, we only have Perrin's deliveries.
I always get my meats delivered in a truck.
I actually subscribed to Schwann's for a couple of years.
Hey, Matt, this is another thing that just as a non-book reader, why was I so tough on this episode? we see Moiraine after she has this discussion with another Aes Sedai, and you can tell she's feeling maybe a bit forlorn. She goes up to a wall and looks at a painting, and you feel like, as a non-book reader, like, oh, that must be really important. But of course, I have no context for it at all. So I'm like, I assume we'll find out about that in the future. So as a book reader, when you see Moiraine go to her wall and kind of open up this little door so she can see this, what I assume is an image, does that have greater bearing? Should we be paying attention to that?
I'm very loath to commit to saying and to answering questions like that at this time until what I can say is I think that you'll know when I know.
Okay, great. Listeners,
so,
write in and tell us. Well, no, you'd spoil it. Write in and tell us. I've been real tough on the effects of the White Tower and some of these story points about our R.I.P. Steppen. If you love this, once again, please no book spoilers, but please, if you're watching this on YouTube, go down in those comments and tell us how you felt about it. Tell us what you think of these effects, because we want to hear from you. We want this to be an interactive show.
And if you're listening to this on an audio format, please be sure to visit the YouTube channel. The Double P Media, that's the word double, the letter P, media, can be found at youtube.com/c/ the word double, the letter P, media, all strung together. And you will be able to see the videos there and comment below if you want to get your feedback to us more directly that way. We've been getting some great feedback there. You can also tweet to @BustBlockbusters, which is or @BustBlockbuster on Twitter, not like the title of the podcast, but just the word bust and the word blockbuster put together. Or you can send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, mattsaudioblog@gmail.com. We spoke a little bit about the conversation between Alanna and Moiraine. Now, she's made plans to make Steppen her third warder. I mean, she's not greedy at all, when you consider that the other guys think that maybe at some point she might take 10. So she's just taking her fair share. Evidently, losing your Aes Sedai, according to Alanna, is almost like swallowing that Aes Sedai's death. And then that kind of makes Moiraine think about, do I want Lan to go through this? But Alanna says, nah, you'll be fine. You don't need to worry about that right now. But at the same time, she says, the Amyrlin Seat's gunning for you, and Liandrin's gunning for you, and everybody's gunning for each other. I mean, I think Moraine's making a smart plan there, to be perfectly honest, if she truly cares about Lan. And the Amyrlin Seat is going to be...
if she truly cares about Lan, he should go first. She should kill it.
That's true. In fact, that seems to be a warder regret, right? That you outlive your Aes Sedai, never outlive your Aes Sedai, kind of like never outlive your children, which is weird. But
oh man, I'm outliving all my children.
I am too. But the Amyrlin Seat is going to be returning, and she's summoned everybody to show up because she wants to know why Logain was gentled before the trial happened. And also there's more politics talk. Once again, that Amyrlin Seat's name, and you guys can make fun of me for this pronunciation, but Schwan Dinner Sanche.
Sure.
And so, but Moiraine, she doesn't like politics, even though Liandrin is gaining political power. And one of the things that I find interesting about this, guys, is that even Alanna herself keeps asking Moiraine questions about where she's doing, where she's been, what she's doing, because nobody seems to know. It's almost like Moiraine is either on this rogue or secret mission. Do you guys get that impression when you watch?
Definitely secret mission is the vibe I'm getting. I don't think you have many Aes Sedai go completely rogue. I wouldn't be surprised if Moiraine is on some mission to find the Dragon Reborn from Schwanson's meat truck.
I feel like, I don't know whether she's on a secret mission, but you could tell there is a lot of distrust for her. Okay. I distrust her too, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Well, if you're okay with a new book reader, a non-book reader prediction, somebody tells Moiraine, you're going to be with us a long time. That's like the kiss of death. Then we have Lan seemingly having some sort of bond with Nynaeve, And is he going to have this same choice that our boy Steppen did, where he loses his Aes Sedai and he has to say, hey, do I want to Steppen stab myself too? Or do I want to Steppen out with a new Aes Sedai in Nynaeve? It feels like that's what the show is trying to get me as a viewer to possibly see as a foreshadowing event. Don't tell me if I'm right or wrong, but that's what the show felt like, especially when this person said, Moiraine, you're about to retire from the police force and go on your boat, live forever.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Steppen is even setting up Lan and Nynaeve, evidently, because as Steppen's talking about his potential future orgy with Alana and her crew, then he's also talking to Lan about Nynaeve over the tea that she gave him, which makes him pass out, and that affords Steppen the opportunity to, go off and be by himself, so that he can stab himself in the gut.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
You should have stopped and seen to Rand.
It's the sound of Cyan Schwantz.
Schwan.
Schwan.
So Lan wakes up and he notices the ceremonial knife missing, and the ceremonial life missing of Steppen, and he puts the two of them together, puts two and two together, and he finds Steppen way too late.
Too late. Yeah, you know why he found him too late? Because he ran really, really slowly.
He ran at 700 frames per second.
I was slightly confused and bemused by the choice of slow motion for that part of I was like, why is this in slow motion? I'm sorry, I should be serious. We lost somebody. Pour one out for Step.
Nobody you cared about.
Nobody I cared about, but somebody cared about him.
Somebody cared about him, but not Catfish. But yeah, at 700 frames per second, Lan finds Steppen, and then we get to where we're going to a funeral scene where everybody beats themselves until they break their own clavicles, and redness is all on that poor actor. I hope that was makeup, Catfish. Do you think that was makeup, or do you think he hit himself? He really got into his role there. Yeah,
it's makeup. He doesn't look very tough to me. I could take him.
Oh, ouch.
Wow. You heard it. You heard it from a professional actor, ladies and gentlemen. No methoding in that particular scene whatsoever. But that pretty much wraps up the story at the White Tower in Tar Valon.
Matt, can I say that, once again, I only gave this episode 6 out of 10. But one thing, as a viewer, this is one thing I know about myself, that if an episode ends on a real high note, even if I didn't like so much of what happened in the bulk of the episode, if it ends on a real high note, then it kind of raises the episode in my estimation. For me, I was so drawn in to the White Cloak scene and some of the other scenes. The fact that didn't end the episode, but instead this did, is another thing maybe why I didn't connect with it. Once again, listeners, if you did connect with this passing of a warder, let us know. I'm just saying, and hopefully this is just me. Hopefully everybody loved it. But for me, that wasn't like how I would have ended the episode. I would have ended it with the White Cloaks and Perrin's wolf powers going to town. I love, that was for me like the holy smokes moment.
Yeah, and it's the way that they split that particular storyline up, they could have put it anywhere. You're correct in that, Bubba. It could have just as easily been at the end as it was where it was, except for maybe, the fact that they decided to have Lan find Steppen at dawn, and the implication that what happened with Perrin and Egwene happened during the course of a night.
Yeah, but when he woke up, it was 3 a.m. It just took him 4 hours to get there.
Well, it's slow motion. Always gets you.
No, it's darn 700 frames per second rolls. Do you guys want to talk about Rand and Matt next, or Perrin and Egwene?
If it's okay, I loved Perrin and Egwene's story once it got to the White Cloaks. That I'd love to save that for the end so we can end this podcast talking about stuff that, at least for me, I just thought was the best stuff in the episode.
Hell yes, cosign.
We'll make that our podcast finale for the recap then. And we'll go to Rand and Matt, one of my favorite characters because he's my namesake, and the other one. Yeah. 1 month later, Matt doesn't like kids anymore. Evidently, he's throwing them down. He's teaching them rough lessons. He's giving them tough love. If he always gave the kids love before. Rand has seen this mountain before. That's kind of strange. And then they get to town. Maybe he saw a picture, a painting or something. They get to town, and Tom evidently is not only a great singer and a great entertainer and a great gleeman and a great fade fighter, but he's also a really good travel agent. He's recommended a hotel to Rand and Matt when they had that conversation. Who knows? But Rand makes sure to take a sample of everything and get his spit all over it before offering any of it to Matt. He insists that Matt is dirty and he needs rest, and there's all kinds of other things going on that I don't think I can say right now to non-book readers.
Can I jump in then, if that's okay?
Go ahead.
Well, once again, I'm just going with the way the story is presented to me. And so I think about characters' driving force. So Rand, who we know your feelings on Double M, Rand, to me, his driving force has been, well, we've got to head to the White Tower because that's where Egwene is. That's where she was going. I want to see her. He was in love with her. He took their breakup, a little rough. So when he suddenly gets to the White Tower and is like, let's not just go there right now. To me, it's a disconnect. I'm like, this guy is being driven to see Egwene again, and now he can't see Egwene, and he's like, no, I got to clean up. So, okay, maybe he's like, I don't want Egwene to see me with, having road dirt from having walked for the last month and lived outside and be terrible. But still, to me, as a viewer, I'm thinking, well, that should be his thing. Get me to Egwene, get me to Egwene, get me to Egwene. And instead, he's jumping in a hotel. He's going to a bookshop. He's doing all these things. And so it was a disconnect in what I thought his driving motivation was.
Now, that all could have been fixed had that been his eventual focus, but he's got a new focus, which is to try to help Matt.
Right,
but
exactly.
Since he doesn't recognize anybody's needs but his own, that hasn't been, but again, that could be his temporary focus, but it doesn't seem like it is. So I completely agree with Bubba. It's kind of like, let's rush. And then, okay, we're here. Let's, let's check it out. It's a big city. Let's,
Well,
there's this local parade happening. Let's watch the parade. I can see Egwene another day.
Well, I think one of the things that you guys are missing is that Matt is actually leading a lot of Rand's actions here. Okay. It's Matt who is very tired, and as much as I hate to, I have to admit that Rand seems very concerned about his health.
All right.
And then Matt seems to be despondent and needs rest very badly. So Rand leaves him alone to get some rest. He's not going to go to the White Tower without him. Then it just so happens that he's in the library there, and he meets Ogier.
Well, hold on. It just so happens he's in the library?
Well, I mean, he's waiting on Matt to wake up.
All right.
But what he does is he finds out that Matt already has woken up, and now he's got to go find Matt and try and bring him back. And maybe he could have suggested, let's go to the White Tower. But Matt's all this super kind of dark, saying, you kill me, I kill you, we're all good. And
yeah, wow.
And Rand's like, whoa, wait a minute, okay. I'll promise, even though he's a liar, he's a coward, he will not kill Matt. He shouldn't even be making those kinds of promises, but he does. And so I think that Matt is leading a lot of the distraction away from Rand and that mission that you were speaking about, Bubba.
Okay, I just didn't read it that way, but I hope you did. That's good.
One of the things that I found interesting I had been waiting for this character to be introduced. I didn't know where or how they were going to do it. This, again, is one of those things where it happened in another city. But we get to meet Aslan. Sorry, I mean Loial. And, he's this Olgir. Something that's very interesting, and I think you guys might want to talk about this, but Loial, based on Rand's hair color, decides that he's an Aielman from the Two Rivers, who insists that he's not an Aielman. So, because Rand keeps saying, I'm not an Aielman, I'm from the Two Rivers, and this Olgir is saying, but your hair's red. We met one before, not living, he wasn't breathing, but it was the one that Matt buried with Tom in, episode 3, who also had red hair. Now,
okay.
Why would Matt and Tom identified him as an Aielman, as him and Matt buried him, or right before they buried him, or right before Matt said, "Hey, I'm going to take his jewel, okay?" And Tom said, "Yeah, I'll just turn around." But either way, so this is what the distinction is. Where we've heard that name before is the fact that Matt knew who he was. Rand had no idea that any of this was going on because he was busy being held by Dana the Damsel, the Double D. So that's where all of that conversation comes from. Now, Rand also says that he thinks he's seen that mountain before. What do you think's going on here? Are they introducing things that make Rand more interesting? He'll never be interesting to me, obviously.
No, brother.
But are they introducing anything, Bubba, that makes him more interesting to you in terms of these little things?
I think Rand is fine. I don't have the Rand hate, but it feels like we're setting.
Defend your feelings of hate about Rand.
Right. It feels like we're setting up more Rand backstory. Obviously, if he says, "I've seen that volcano before," and people are saying, "Oh, you look like an Aielman," you don't bring that up in a story if it's pointless, right? We're going to find out that whatever an Aielman really is, Rand is. We're going to find out that, yes, he's seen that mountain before. These are not, once again, you've got a very limited amount of time in a television show. So you only want to bring up things if they truly do have a point. So I assume this is things we're going to find out, and I assume they'll be important for Rand as moving forward. But if you're asking me if I trust the Ogre, then yes, I do.
You do trust the Olgir. Catfish, could this possibly just be a big, huge red herring?
Oh, God. I hope not. I'm with Bubba. It feels to me, I read, before the show started, I read a review about the show that I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And what they were saying was there's a lot going on that they don't explain, but they do explain things just about when you need to know them.
Right.
So, and I thought, oh, that's good and smart. And so there's a lot of mystery here. We're halfway through this season, and I feel like there's so many things that we don't know. And so all I'm asking for at this point, as they're spoon feeding me these things and we're getting stuff, is that I have some stuff that I can really sink my teeth into. And so when I talked about how this is my favorite episode, it's because of this scene where we have a character that's light, and it's completely understandable, as I said before, why we don't have a lot of light characters in this world. I mean, considering all the things that have happened to them. But we also have the delicious white cloaks. And so there were two scenes in this episode that I was thrilled and delighted by, and this is one of them. I hope we see more of this guy, of Loial.
Loial doesn't seem to not want to stay involved. He doesn't get his nose out of business because he evidently gets a free pass into the White Tower anytime he wants, and naturally,
because he's cool, Matt. Because he's freaking cool.
Because he's Aslan. You don't turn Aslan down anytime. And
you've seen those hands? You put those hands around your neck, and it's like, I would like to come into the White Tower. You say yes, followed by sir.
That's probably true. Nonetheless, he insists he knows more about human hair than any other person because he goes and he finds Nynaeve in the garden, and he just assumes that it's this Egwene that Rand was talking about because of the braid that she's wearing, brings her back and says, hey, look, I brought your person back. It's not his person, but it is a person that they know.
Close enough, Matt. Close enough.
Never close enough.
One
if you
person
Rand, he's
from
so
Two
picky.
Rivers
I'm surprised he didn't punch Ogier out or punch Loyal out for just, not getting the right girl. But instead, he's happy to see Nynaeve.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised that Egwene hasn't got a restraining order out on Rand.
Oh no.
I'm kind of surprised by that too. I'm kind of surprised by that too.
Take a hint.
I mean, why'd you break up with me? And anyway,
there go the downloads. They're just disappearing one by one by one.
Loyal. Okay.
You okay?
Look what you did to Matt.
Listen, we need Nynaeve. She can heal him.
Yeah.
Oh no, Matt's got breakbone fever.
But she can't. Well, Nynaeve maybe could heal this Matt, but she can't heal the Matt that she needs to be tending to, because the second that she tries to do any kind of diagnosis, Matt snaps at her really bad.
Great moment in an episode I'm tough on. I want to keep saying that. That was a great moment where Matt doesn't want to show Nynaeve his tongue, this sickness. He has gone mad. Great dramatic moment.
I thought it was really good too. In fact, I'm just going to say this. I feel like of all of the actors of our main cast, I feel like Barney Harris has done the most fabulous job with this Matt character. Now, you may not understand some of the writing behind it, but I feel like that his acting has been absolutely fabulous. I don't know, Catfish, if you have a professional opinion about that or not.
No, I think he's good. I mean, it's tough because we didn't really get a big baseline on these characters before so much stuff happened to them that they kind of got twisted out of shape. And so Matt is he's not having a good month.
Walk it off. Oh, he did.
He tried to walk it off. He certainly did. He tried to walk it off. It didn't seem to help. But nonetheless, Matt gets snappy with her, and then Rand tells her about what's been going on with Matt, tells Nynaeve about this, and he asks if they can trust Moiraine. Is this the person you want to ask if they can trust Moiraine? She says that they'll figure it out all on their own. And then, in order to make Rand feel better about whether Egwene is still alive or not, tells a horrific story about a horrific fever that Egwene evidently survived at like age 10. That's a way of, I guess, double R'ing, reassuring Rand that Egwene will make it to Tar Valon. And that's kind of the end of their storyline at the moment, while all of the suicide stuff is happening. That's a double S happening over at the White Tower.
Let me have a non-book reader prediction for this section.
Okay.
Well, obviously, the idea that Nynaeve and Rand won't take Matt to the White Tower is, of course, the wrong move. And it's not until they take him to the White Tower that he'll be able to be cured of this terrible possession or whatever it was that happened when he touched that cursed knife.
Bubba, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Just because you were out there making predictions, and I love your predictions so good. How long do you think they will play with this? It could be any of the five. Are we talking years?
Oh, wow.
Are we talking
I would.
the end of this season? Years? Do it for years?
I would. Well, I would. On last week's podcast, I said that what I kind of hoped is that Nynaeve wouldn't be one of the five, and that we could have a twist of this fifth person being someone else we have to go out and find, and a reason why we could leave the White Tower and have more adventures out in this magical fantasy land. And so I wouldn't think we're going to know. I'll say I think at the very end of season 2, that's when I'd reveal it.
Okay.
So that's my guess.
Because no matter who it is, the rest will stay with them to assist them in their whatever they're doing.
Ooh. Or right. Do you see the drama of 4 close friends who suddenly 3 of them have to fight and take down one of their good friends because they've been touched with the one power. I think there are a lot of different ways you could go with the story.
Wow.
So
that'd be great. The only thing I hope is that if Matt get cured, that he still holds to his promise to kill Rand.
right.
Remember
Wait, what are you
said.
doing with that knife over me while I sleep?
I'm remembering what you said, Matt.
Catfish, I like the fact that no matter how cured Matt ever gets, he will keep his promises. So
How about this?
Matt, I like Matt because Matt was like, my parents are horrible. I'm the one who's got to take care of the kids. So he's a good dude.
No. I've been the one who takes care of the kids by stealing an innocent woman's bracelet. We need tougher law enforcement and more cops on the street of Two Rivers.
I think for right now for Two Rivers, we need a repopulation plan. I don't think we need to worry about the streets being clean.
Let's send in some disaster relief first.
Yeah, exactly. Some people to dig some ditches.
Listen, the Trollocs will get those human beings digging ditches real soon.
And on to Perrin and Egwene.
Let's
Love
go.
it. Let's do this.
Bubba and Catfish's favorite segment, evidently. And
Hell yeah.
after another, violence philosophy lesson between Perrin and Aram, Perrin and Egwene, they see the Empire State Building. They're very happy that they've finally arrived at the Big Apple. And the questioner all of a sudden shows up, and he stops the Tuatha and recognizes Egwene and Perrin. Uh-oh. This leads to an MLK-style resistance happening, which didn't work any better than unfortunately some people got treated back in the 60s. And
man, I saw this as not that very important MLK movement. I just saw this as like cops beating up hippies. That's what I saw. I did see it as a 60s thing, but I saw it as the cops beating up the hippies. And, maybe they could have had a sit down. But before we even go further into this story, the one thing I think these White Cloaks are great villains. They're kind of even more understandable, tangible villains than the Dark One and the Trollocs, which kind of seem like just a fantasy force you would see in a lot of ways. But to me, the fact that these are White Cloaks who seemingly want to kill Aes Sedai, who are right there outside the White Tower. If you want to kill Aes Sedai, dude, go. You know where they are. They're right there. But you're out here, within shouting distance.
They gotta pick them off one by one. You see what happens when the Aes Sedai get together in a group. They will wreck your.
Well, you don't think somebody would say, "Hey, I was a mile out of town and I saw a bunch of White Cloaks." You don't think the Aes Sedai would then come out of the White Tower and say, "Okay, enough of this"? Especially you're right. Leandrin would come out and say, "Here, I got to clean these woods of this scummy White Cloak guys."
Well, I'm trying to remember because didn't Moiraine saw our boy with a bunch of rings, right? So she knows for sure these White Cloaks are after the Aes Sedai. So one thing that's not clear to me, two things that aren't clear to me is where do the White Cloaks get their power from, and why are they after the Aes Sedai? So in other words, in this world, I don't know who's in charge. I know we have the Aes Sedai, and they've got their own stuff. And I've got the White Cloaks, and I mean, sure, the fact that they have this power means they can do it. But like who's behind the White Cloaks, and what is their goal? Is their goal to take care of the Aes Sedai, or is this just a special project by our boy Child Valda?
That's a very interesting prospect that you bring up there, Catfish. And let's look back at the very first episode when Moiraine and Lan arrive. Is there a single person in that room when they know that she's an Aes Sedai that looks at her like they trust her in Two Rivers?
That's a good point.
So this is where a radical or not, this is how an organization like the Children of the Light get their rise to power, because nobody trusts these Aes Sedai.
Okay, so that's fine, and I appreciate being shown and not told, but because we as viewers see what Moiraine does and know that that at least we're kind of led to trust her, then it wasn't clear to me that like the view of them in the outside world was untrustable and that they needed to be hunted down and that.
Right. Can I piggyback on what you're saying, Catfish? How about this? We suddenly meet up with a group of Aes Sedai in episode 4, and yes, they are controlling a person. They've locked a person up who they claim is a false dragon, but we saw how powerful Logain was, and so as a viewer, I'm like, I even said on last week's podcast, maybe it's going to hurt him, but this one power is dangerous. Yeah, gentle this guy. So once again, I so far, even Leandrin, who wanted to gentle him, I kind of understood her reasoning. And so I guess I need more reinforcements of why the common man in this land would distrust. I need more of that shown to me. And once again, not told. I'd love to see it shown to me. And then I could go, oh, okay. I understand why a force like the White Cloaks could arise in the world.
That's understandable. I can't. All I can do is just point out what the show has shown, and
that's good.
Well, but I don't think it would be out of bounds for you to speculate or straight up tell us that like the White Cloaks are more accepted for what they're doing, and they have an approval for this. And not that they're just like this renegade group.
Okay. The best way I can put it to you, Catfish, is essentially think of them like the Holy Crusaders. They are an army to enforce a religious cause. And their religious cause is saying that this power that these people wield, as the questioner explained in this episode, at least from his point of view. Remember, because it is a religious thing in some ways, they're going to be extremists also. So is the questioner an extremist, or is that just part of the book? I don't feel it's my job to reveal that unless the show does. But I on the other hand, one of the things that the questioner says is nobody should have a hold of this power. Not men, not women, nobody. This power belongs to a higher power than us. And we are here to make sure that humans don't mess with it. So
and I got that, but the idea, well, I don't know, and I think it's fine. I don't know if these White Cloaks are supported by the common man, or are they crusaders who just went and did it because they wanted to do it that way, and that's fine. We'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it from either viewpoint. Some people, once they are subjected to certain things. Is the mistrust of the Aes Sedai and the Two Rivers a result of White Cloaks coming around and saying their thing? Or is it simply because the Two Rivers haven't done anything except heard stories about Aes Sedai that may have happened near Tar Valon or wherever, where a questioner was demonstrating the dangerous powers of an Aes Sedai? We don't know that yet at this point. And I think it's good that you guys bring this up.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. I don't know how powerful the Aes Sedai are in the world. And I don't know how powerful the White Cloaks are in the world. But I know how powerful the Leaf people are. And that is not.
Oh, man.
They are not powerful.
They are the most powerful people in the world. Because two people, they're going to change the world, one person, two people at a time, by teaching their ways.
I think what she said was we're going to change the world in about 10 generations.
Oh, more like 10,000 generations.
But 10,000 generations.
But I was just throwing a number out there.
That's season's 5.
That's season 1531. But the whole idea is it's the most powerful thought in the world, and that is just give peace a chance. Just give peace a chance, man. I mean, that's all you got to do.
Well, they gave it a chance, and they got their asses whooped.
No.
That they did. And after that happens, Egwene gets a sinful scrubbing, and that's a terrible double S.
Terrible. Oh my God, just terrible. But that, of course, I'm saying terrible, but I'm also saying that's what makes these guys such good villains. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Great.
That was just so that she could be questioned. They had to just,
They had to put her in white too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
enough of your heathen colors.
Oh, yeah. It was very, it was just disturbing all around for me, to see poor Egwene go through that. Then Perrin's brought in, and they lay him out kind of in a inverted Han Solo style so that they can do stuff on his back instead of his chest from Empire Strikes Back. Egwene, pleads with Child Valda.
Oh, it's so good the way he's like, I'm not powerful. And the way when he says, call me Child Valda. Oh, my God.
Man.
The power he displays while claiming he's not powerful. Oh, he's delicious. Team Valda.
Yeah.
Abdul Salas is his name. And, you were talking about great acting. This guy hasn't appeared much. But in his short appearances, you don't want to mess with this guy. I think he's done a great job.
I think so, too, Bubba. I agree with you completely there.
You know what, though? And what I like about this guy is, he travels on the road, but he's always
spotless.
He's spotless. He eats very well, and he likes a good campfire.
Oh, I was gonna say he's a picky eater.
From episode 1, always a good campfire.
Yep. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. He
Aes Sedai and some marshmallows. Let's do this.
I loved the exchange between him and Egwene, where he's like, well, I know you're not Aes Sedai because you can't lie, the way they twist their words. And she says, oh, well, you're a white cloak. You're not supposed to hurt common people. And he's like, yeah, I'm not hurting common people. I'm hurting you. Oh, I mean, there was delicious, great scene. Great scenes, I should say.
Yeah, his whole idea, again, a demonstration of extremism. Is this guy kind of rogue within his own organization? He seemed to be very tolerated by the guy that was headed down to Gai'don, or however you say that country name that I still haven't learned after 2 episodes.
First of all, if he was a bad guy, he would have killed both of them. But he gave him a choice. Come on.
Right.
Come on. Very merciful.
Look, and he even likes games. I mean, he did try to play tic-tac-toe on Perrin's back. Not exactly sure who he was playing. Maybe he was just playing a game for himself, but all of that looked painful. And as he does this, what happens to Perrin's eyes? The irises start to look kind of like wolf irises, would you guys say?
Yeah. Oh, yellowish for sure.
Wow, okay.
He sort of bows up a little in the first scene when he gets cut. Yep. Doesn't go full wolf though until the second scene.
Exactly. And as in the in-between time, as Child Valda did give them a lot of respect by giving them a chance to decide for themselves who would die.
Exactly.
The good old Team Trolloc is behind that noble gesture there of Child Valda, and I believe that they start to talk it out. Both of them are willing to sacrifice themselves. Perrin's whole bit about what happened with his wife comes out to Egwene, and that's one of the reasons why he's willing to sacrifice himself. He looks like he's punishing himself for what happened to her. And I was under the impression in an earlier episode that she kind of already knew. Obviously, I was wrong about that. She did not know because she seemed very shocked.
How would she have known?
Well, I guess they kind of explained it in this episode that she just assumed that the Trollocs had killed. There was one time when they were at the wagons right after, I think it was Isla who gave him the talk about the axe and all of that stuff, and they all started to walk, where Egwene kind of grabbed his arm. And I was wondering if that was an allusion to the fact that, Isla had said, doesn't something terrible always happen after you grab an axe? And I thought that maybe she kind of knew at some point off camera he had told her, but it made it a much better payoff for him to tell her on camera. obviously. So that was all very dramatic and everything. And then Child Valda returns, and that's when Perrin goes full wolf guy, and totally freaks Valda out. He's never seen anything like this before, evidently. That's not. I should back up just for a second because Egwene's double F was horrible. Her flimsy fireball.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Yeah,
hilarious.
Yeah,
poof.
So I loved how he just kind of laughed that off, but then he saw some real power and it scared the crap out of him. So that gives Egwene a chance to use her one power to actually burn her bonds and grab that knife and stab him in the back.
Yeah. Can I say that Child Valda real quickly learned from Perrin, who's your daddy? And then Egwene gave him a slice of his own medicine. Ooh, yes.
Man, I tell you though, I would have given this episode a negative rating if they had killed off Child Valda. Thank sweet Jesus, he's just injured, and now, he's not going to mess around anymore. Before he was going easy.
Well, we don't know that he survived. I mean, he's probably survived that stabbing, but
did he survive the wolves?
Did he survive the wolves?
That's an excellent question.
I'm boycotting this show if he's no longer in it. Damn it, he's the best.
You've been looking for an excuse to get out of podcasting on this.
No, he's the best. I love him.
When Perrin leveled up and released the wolves on those mofos, I was so happy. I was like, yes, eat them. It's dinner time. Let's go.
As soon as all of that craziness starts happening and the Baja Men video starts playing, then parents, double F's, the feral friends, they just off all of these children of the light, and that allows them to seemingly escape. So you have to assume that they are now headed to Tar Valon themselves. So that kind of wraps up that storyline. I kind of went through it rather quickly. Bubba, is there any points about it that we haven't discussed that you want to talk about it?
No, I'll do one of my famous, to myself, non-book reader predictions. So these Tinkers, these peace-loving people, we're going to see them again. They will come back around. Maybe not this season, but we're going to see them again. And the bond that they've had with Perrin and Egwene will pay off later on.
That's my take them a few episodes to heal up, for God's sakes. They just got the snot beat out of them.
Show up right at the end of episode 8. Hey, here we are.
It's great. They just spend 3 days cutting down trees for build crutches for themselves.
The 4 or 5 reborn dragons, Moiraine brings them out to a field and says, okay, we need to test your powers on fighting some people. There's no one here. Hey, it's us, the Tinkers. Uh-oh.
Oh, man.
I don't know what's worse than that joke.
No.
You guys want to play a game of What's Worse?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
All right. What's worse? This is where we play high school debate team. Somebody asks a question. The other two people argue it fervorously. They have to argue opposite sides. And since we have 3 of us, this will be fun. Catfish will ask a question. Right. Bubba and I will argue, and then we'll just rotate from there. Catfish, do you want to bless us with your question first?
Absolutely. All right. This is a tough one.
Tough one.
What's worse, being forced to address a grown man as child, or being upset over a free salon-style exfoliation?
Oh.
These are both things dealing with Egwene.
Yes. I will go first, Bubba.
Sure.
I say that being forced to call a grown man a child is worse. This is naturally because the grown man obviously has some issues downstairs and wants to make sure that that's out front, obviously, and that's nothing but gross to a woman in terms of being insulted in that way. To have to tell a man that he just doesn't measure up, it doesn't work at all. What do you say, Bubba?
I say that was a waste of 30 seconds because it's worse. to be upset over a free salon-style exfoliation.
What?
Now, let me say, Egwene, why are you complaining? And I found out in a cutscene. Have you watched those cutscenes on Amazon in YouTube Prime Video that they show cutscenes? So Egwene, they take off her clothes, they exfoliate all her skin and scrub it off, and she's like, "Guys, I'm in a fantasy show. I'm getting exfoliated, and you didn't have the decency to play some of that Enya music that you hear at the spa. That complaining about that, Egwene, not cool."
Well, we're going to put it on a poll so that our folks can decide the extreme right decision, which is, of course, mine. But Catfish, if you had to judge between these two arguments, who would you say won?
I mean, Bubba brought the special extra scenes into it, and so obviously with that extra knowledge, he wins.
No, I see. I disagree. I think it's because he couldn't do it canonically. He couldn't argue it canonically. I mean, extra scenes, deleted scenes, those aren't part of the story.
Well, also you said canonically rather than canonically, and so I'm going to give it to Bubba just for that.
Oh, thank you so much. With the money I've won from this, I'm going to go to Spa Sidel. I'm going to have the whole works done, a mani-pedi. I'll be gone all day.
Oh my God, they put that nice robe on you. You feel fresh.
Yeah, of course.
Jeez, holy cow.
Yes, excellent, awesome. Let's see here. Bubba, you ask a question next.
Well, guys, this is for listeners, too. Please, listeners, write to us. We need your feedback on what's worse. And so I trust these guys to give me two answers, but I need you listeners to answer the polls at Blockbuster on Twitter. So what's worse, being an Ogier or looking at an Ogier?
Matt, I'm going to let you go first. It's your podcast.
I mean, what have I been doing this whole podcast? Looking at an Ogier is definitely worse.
That hurts so much.
I mean, my gosh, Aslan, just go back to Narnia and leave us alone here in this world of the Wheel of Time, because your face makes zero sense. You talk. I know that you've implied that humans are very fast compared to your way of living. You only seem to have 3 generations in your whole family, which means you've been there a long time.
Matt, you fell right into my trap.
Oh,
I was hoping you would say that, because here you are. You're a friendly, sweet Ogier. Someone comes in, they're talking to you. You give them a lot of good information. And then as they're walking out, they say to themselves, you know what? The worst thing that could have happened to me happened to me. I had to look at an Ogier. And they say it right there while you're still in the room. Worst thing that happened to them was looking at you.
Ouch.
So clearly, being an Ogier and having to deal with people's hurtful sayings is worse. Thank you. Fell right into my trap.
Bubba,
over it.
Bubba, is there even a need for the decision? Do you even need to make a decision here? Is it pretty much implied?
Matt, listen, I am your loyal podcasting friend, and so I will not choose a side in this. I'll let our viewers decide.
Oh,
and our
what a
loyal
chicken.
Listeners.
What a chicken. Don't even know a braid from an Aiel hair. Anyway, that's great. I'll ask the next question. At Blockbuster on Twitter will be the polls. You get 3 what's worse questions this time. Folks, that's like, 50% more than you normally get each week. So
I love it.
Be sure to vote.
Yeah.
And let's see. My question shall be, trying to protect a potential novice from politics by locking her away in a warder's quarters, or inviting an Ogier to the White Tower just so he can steal away that protected novice?
Well, I will pick a side, and I have a very strong feeling, but only about one part of it. And my strong feeling is that it's worse to have to say warder's quarters too often, because that is a tongue twister. And so, locking her away in the warder's quarters, marauders are going for the warder's quarters. That is worse.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to say then that inviting an Ogier to the White Tower just so he can steal away the novice is worse. Because
so it's a novice. Who cares? We got a million of them.
Yeah, because you should have invited him in.
Oh no!
You should have invited him in to steal Rand. That's what you should have done. So it's not that you invited him to steal someone away. You invited him in to steal away the wrong person.
You know what? Listen to me.
Worse.
No. When you've got Orgors, when you have Orgers at Warders Without Borders, that's when it's worse.
Listen, this was a tough decision to make, but simply because I feel like that Catfish is my partner in crime in the Rand hate. I have to go with him. However, folks, my decision is not final. It is up to you to vote by going to @Blockbuster on Twitter and voting on the polls. They come out right after the podcast does. I tell you to listen to the podcast and then decide for yourselves. Decide for the rest of us. And you guys have been chiming in a lot with feedback. So let's talk about some of that. I just have a couple of quick thanks to talk about. First of all, to Hamlet is Dead for all the retweets that they've been doing.
Hell
The good old double L.
Double a loyal listener.
Yes, exactly. And also to a new listener who's being very loyal, although he's definitely a loyal listener to the Double P podcast feed, to the Double P Media, to Double PHQ on Twitter. That's the word double, the letters PHQ on Twitter. He's been very loyal to all of us here, and he always enjoys being my foe on the internet.
Oh, no. It's your nemesis, Matt?
It is. My nemesis, Patman, has returned. But he's been praising the podcast, that's a Double P, and he's been sharing it with fellow people who've been asking him. So thank you very much, Patman, for doing that.
That is some serious nemesis behavior.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to lambasting him in just a little bit.
Well, when they hear what you guys said about Rand, it will be nemesis behavior. So.
Oh, is Patman Team Rand? That would make him my nemesis.
Here we go.
Patman's making enemies everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I know.
That's what he does because he's just so darn nice. We got a review also on the podcast app. By the way, folks, we are now your 49th favorite podcast talking about Wheel of Time on Apple Podcasts. That's out of about 15 shows actively talking about the television show. Wow. We are number 49. So thank you very much. We're on the way up. And
we're going to reach the White Tower, and then we'll be number 1 if you keep giving us great reviews like we got from Yup OK.
Yup OK did give us a great review. 5 stars, Double M, Master Magician. I love a good review that mentions me.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. A Master Magician. That may not be me. It's just a Double M. I thought they meant Matt Murdock. Anyway, always a great show, no matter the topic. Thank you so much, Yup OK, who's left multiple reviews. Yup OK. Yeah, we appreciate the multiple reviews across all of the Double P podcasts. We're going to be talking about a couple of those at the end of this podcast. As I mentioned, we put things up on polls, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wow. I can't wait for the poll results.
We have lots of polls to talk about this week because I got a little crazy with them. First of all, we got to answer our what's worse questions from last week. What's worse, seeing the little girl who reminds you of your sister when the little girl is murdered, or being a grown man and accepting a doll from that same little girl? And 1,600 of you on the 100 Twitter voted. 1,600 of you on the 100 Twitter voted. It's almost like 12 out of 16 of you voted for seeing the girl murdered. That's another victory for Bubba. I think I'm 0 for whatever.
Love it.
0 for the entire podcast.
Yeah, I went with child murder. That was my winning move.
Yeah, when you go for child murdering,
not just your winning move, but it feels like it's your go-to move. To be honest,
you got to do it. You got to do it.
The next What's Worse poll came in. Going mad from being able to channel that one power, or going mad because the gentling took that power away. 1,300 votes on this one. It's almost like 10 out of 13 of you voted for madness from gentling over madness from channeling. So
well, let's just say 10 out of every 13.
Yeah, that's the way I think.
No, I prefer
like
to
10
just
out
let
of
you know
15.
that it's almost like 10 out of 13 of you.
But
voted
just say
for it.
every.
I think my meth argument really won this last week. So thank you, listeners.
The meth argument did work. Speaking of which, there was another poll that was put out.
Another
by me.
poll.
It was a very close poll. It was almost like 7 out of 13 of you, out of the 1,300 of you that voted, decided that neither Matt nor Bubba know way too much about meth. So I feel like my credibility is shot now, Bubba. It's shot.
I was needed on that podcast.
It would have raised our meth credibility up.
Knowledge for sure.
Hey, we had a final poll this week, Matt.
Tell me, Bubba.
Do you know that I have been asking for weeks? I'm like, as a non-book reader, is this Rand hating a thing? Should I start hating Rand? What's going on? And so on our Twitter account at Bust Blockbuster, we asked you loyal listeners, does not...
You know what? Be very careful about how you phrase this, because I'm not sure how it was phrased.
Yeah, it was. I think that may have affected the results. I completely agree.
Absolutely.
So I think what the poll is trying to ask you, listeners, was, does nobody, no one, not a single soul hate Rand except for our Double M host, Matt Murdock? So the idea is nobody hates Rand except for Matt. And would you believe that this was a very close vote? Because you shouldn't believe that. It wasn't close. 69% said Matt is the only person who hates Rand, while a very strong 31% said no, other people besides Matt hate Rand.
You know what? I'm gonna protest this. I need to go to the Supreme Court. I don't like the way this question was answered. I feel like this question should be asked again.
Yeah.
In a more clear fashion.
No. Not a single soul hates Rand. Yes or no? Except Matt. I don't count as a soul. Do you think I have a soul, Catfish? Come on.
Do other people besides Matt and Catfish hate Rand? That's a more clear question.
No. You've lost me with the question.
How about this? How about you say, do you hate Rand?
No. We don't want to pry into people's personal lives and beliefs.
We do not want to lead our voting audience here. And so
I want to know the honest answer to that question, and that there's no question there.
No, there's never a question in these polls.
Okay. All right.
But the truth of the matter is that 1,600 of you on the 100 Twitter did chime in, and it's almost like 11 out of every 16. Did I do that right,
Catfish?
11 out of every 16.
Every is important. It's every is important.
Hey, we got other feedback on Twitter on our @BustBlockter account. I love it.
Every time I see this guy's face show up on my notifications feed, I just screenshot it real quick, put it up on the doc so that everybody else can read it. Catfish, could you please just tell me what my nemesis Patman said this time around?
Patman always reaches out with good stuff. He said, I'm still listening to the episode 4 podcast.
Whoa.
Thought it was an excellent episode of Wheel of Time. He has 2 notes.
Not the podcast. He said the excellent episode of the show.
He said excellent episode of the show. Well, he's still listening to the podcast. He reserves the right to withhold judgment until the podcast is done. Yeah. He has 2 notes. Matt keeps calling Perrin's wife Lena when I think it's Layla. He says it could be wrong.
Yeah, I'll think Eric Clapton from now on, Patman. Sorry about that.
So he was right about that. He says Bubba has once or twice conflated the Dark One as being the dragon. Tom's song in episode 3 was probably about the dragon and not the Dark One. I'm not a book reader, just working with what I think is going on. I'm not saying Bubba is literally thinking the Dark One is the dragon. Just there's some looseness when he says Dark One. I think he means a previous dragon.
Oh, I love that instructive feedback. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Pat. I think that's you're correct.
He also said, I love the press conference with Coach T, Coach Trolloc. I prefer Coach Trolloc. And the commercial for Logain, the dial 111 power made me laugh. That was great.
Ooh,
and then
wonderful.
Well, he's got some feedback regarding episode 105, the show, not the podcast, because we're recording the podcast right now, and unless he has any dark powers, he hasn't heard it yet. And he says it seemed like the story slowed down a pace, especially after the events of episode 4, but maybe that's okay, because the grieving process was important to address. The White Cloaks are the worst. I'm now an Ogre fan. Okay, Ogier fan. All right, so obviously when he said the worst, he means the best as far as the White Cloaks go.
The White Cloaks are the best part of the show, but what they do is the worst. And that's what makes them great.
Right. Agree to disagree.
Yeah, once again, Patman has proven himself to be my nemesis by approving of Ogiers. And if you want to do the Narnia thing, Patman, that's fine with me. I totally appreciate
we got a whole heck of a lot of Patman goes up front where he deserves to be, but we got a whole lot of other feedback as well. You guys want to take some of the YouTube stuff?
Yeah. Can you believe that MJ Daniel wrote on YouTube that he says, or she says, they wrote, I have read the series more than once, and I really like the show. MJ, that is exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you, listeners. If you feel the way MJ does, please shoot us that feedback.
Exactly. And Double Null Test Channel says, I'm thinking Logain is a good guy. There you go. Exactly correct. Double Null Test Channel.
I don't know about that.
All he did was try to save the world, not break it. And look what happened to him. He was able to resist all of those imaginary former dragons in his head. He was able to do the right thing and heal that king. And he was going to do nothing but good. Karene made that choice. She could have let it just all go down equally where he killed all 3 of them. But no, she had to shield the other 2. And that's so Karina really wrote her own death sentence in regards to that. Logain is the proper Dragon Reborn, in my opinion. Well, he's kind of mush now, but he used to be the proper Dragon Reborn.
Hey, I want to go to this feedback from Priscilla, who wrote, thank you for dropping by my live YouTube show. Oh, Priscilla, we loved it. Everybody check out Priscilla-A Maldita on YouTube. She has a great show about Wheel of Time in a special language that I don't speak too well, but it was still fun to be there. She said she was just hanging out with her subs, and then Matt and I appeared. What a cameo. Priscilla also says that for the Rand haters, she says she loves the segment.
Yeah.
There you go. I think Matt should be the Rand hater this episode, and she means Matt with 1 T, the character.
And she also means episode 4.
Yes, because Rand went there and opened his heart, and Matt went, okay. Talk about shade.
Bring the shade.
Heck yeah.
Bring the shade.
Priscilla wraps up by saying BT Dubs Steppen is played by Finnish actor Peter Franson, who is killing it as always. And what he's killing in this episode, killing his character.
Literally killing this episode. Matt Larson also is a Rand hater contributor now.
Oh, wow.
Matt's, we appreciate you coming on and giving these. For episode 1, the narc who lost his keys to the rented cabin. For episode 2, homeless bats. Yes, they should hate Rand for spitting them out. Yeah. Episode 3, Breen Springs Tinder users.
Our final bit of feedback on YouTube is from Matthew Ambrose, who wrote, "The F, leave my boy Rand alone. He's my favorite characters from the books, so I gotta defend him. You defend him, Matthew. Heck yeah."
Matthew, you are dead to me. But please come back and listen to the podcast and watch the videos, and we love you. Thank you so much for commenting. We really do like you.
Matthew, I love it. I love it, Matthew. Just keep reminding me of the good stuff that he does, or tell me, because I'm not recognizing it. I'm willing to be told I'm wrong. Bubba tells it to me every time I talk to him.
I know. I text. I call him in the middle of the night in case he forgot. Gotta keep reminding him.
Moving on to music, it's Bustin' Balfe, another double B. Just got a nice tweet from our friends over at TV Podcast Industries who are also covering The Wheel of Time.
Great guys.
And doing a great job with it. Really appreciate them. They've become good friends of mine personally, and I suppose of the Double P Podcast Network as well.
Hey, they're good guys.
But they wanted to say, I'm sure you probably watched it. I did, guys. I did, Derek, John, and Chris. But great documentaries on the music with Lauren Balfe in the extras for this week, which, Bubba, I don't know if you saw those or not, but there are 2 little mini segments added in the bonus content for this week's episode. One is primarily a focus on the actor who plays Tom Maryland and his portrayal of that song that Bubba didn't understand the meaning of. It really bugged me because he talked about how he took a kind of a Tom Waits approach to singing, which I heard in the performance, but I really wanted to do a whole skit performance like I do at the front of each episode of that Dragon song and have him introduced at the club as Tom Waits, and then they had to put that out there and it ruined my bit, so I can't do that bit.
Shameful.
You all are saved by the fact that they did do that. The other one was really great too. It explored some of the different vocal performances and some of the approaches for instruments and everything that Lauren is taking for the score for the show. Some really interesting groups that he has singing some of that stuff, some really interesting singers as well. So be sure to check all of that out. This time around for me, I'm just going to check out about how harmony can affect the emotional context of a melody that we already know, mainly the main theme. We hear it every week when the show credits come on. But when you dress it up with a little bit different harmony, it kind of takes on a different context.
Good night, Moiraine.
So as that scene closes between Moiraine and Alanna, we hear a very familiar theme. It's the main theme, which has been associated a lot with Moiraine, actually, but also with the Aes Sedai. There's something different about it, though. And what is that difference? Well, when we hear the main theme and the opening credits, it's pretty much centered just around one key. But here we have a great demonstration of how harmony can create a different kind of emotional context regarding any particular piece of music. Once again, the way that melody sounds in the first context, it's pretty much centered around the tonic, the home key. It sounds centered like this. The bass notes aren't really moving. It's all just feels like it's centered around one piece. There's no real harmony moving anywhere for us emotionally. And there are some subtle changes in the main theme as it progresses through the opening credits that give it a little bit of harmonic context, but nothing like the end of this particular scene. At the end of this particular scene, we have a different bass line, and the bass line is moving, and it creates different emotions as it goes. I'm talking about this part. That moving bass line creates different kinds of harmonies that create all kinds of things. First of all, the bass line is moving down, which is kind of like this sinking feeling. You feel the impending politics coming upon Moiraine in regards to some of the things that Alanna said. Additionally, that very last bass note with that melody note creates a great deal of tension, which tells us, this is something serious because it's got a lot of tension in it. And then finally, we do get to settle on what musicians call the tonic, the home key, the place that feels like home. But then the harmonies move against the static tonic. So you have an exact inverse of what you had before. The bass line was moving against the melody that we know. Now, the harmonies are moving up against the bass that we know. Now, one thing that's very interesting to me regarding this particular section is the fact that that middle harmony that's between the bass and the melody that we're hearing, it is rising against the static bass note. But the very last note, coupled with the bass note, creates a different kind of chord quality than we're used to hearing with a tonic chord. I know that sounds like a lot of gibberish. All I'm saying is that when we feel like a song has kind of come home, so to speak, like it feels where it's supposed to begin, where it's supposed to end, we don't normally hear that middle harmony note with it. That middle harmony turns what would normally not be a dominant chord, I'll explain that in a second, into a dominant chord. And what a dominant chord does is a dominant chord is kind of a function that always makes the music feel like it needs to go somewhere else. It makes it feel incomplete. And that's exactly what this is narratively and emotionally trying to tell us, is that as of yet, this situation is not resolved. So there you go. I know it was kind of a double S, a short segment, but we've got to get back to Bubba and Catfish.
All right, Catfish, you ready?
Yep.
So at the count of 3, we're going to say harmony in harmony. We're going to sing it out. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Harmony. Oh, man, Lauren Balfe could learn from us.
Wow, Matt. Oh, that was great. I was so glad. Thanks, Matt. He just brings it every week with his music analysis. I learned so much.
Catfish is always, I love it, the fact that you listen to my segments each and every podcast that we do for Double P.
Oh,
anytime that I'm talking about the Mandalorian music or the Why the Last Man music, Catfish is always the first to download Bubba sends it to him. I send the stuff to Bubba via email.
As a prep for the episode, I listened to the music analysis first, and then it really gets me into the mode.
Well, so, I mean, the music tells so much of the story, Catfish. It really does. It tells so much of the story that you really do need it for prep in order to understand the story that you're witnessing on screen.
I do. But just beautiful as always.
It's so wonderful to hear that my fellow podcasters actually listen to what I have to say when I record it, but not necessarily when they're speaking to me in person. So on that note, we are done for this particular podcast. I've got a book reader podcast, special podcast coming up in the near future. I don't know if I'm going to do just the 4th and 5th episode or if I'm going to do 4, 5, and 6 like I did 1, 2, and 3 the last time around. But you will get that at some point in the near future. And Bubba has been kind enough to even put those up on the YouTube as well, even though that's not the thing. He won't be there. Neither will Catfish. It'll just be me. You'll be bored. But if you want to talk to people who aren't boring, there are ways to do so. Our special guest, Catfish, this time around, has a way for you to talk to him. Catfish, how do they find you out there in the internet?
They can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter. Your 67th favorite CJG man.
And Bubba,
yes,
who is much more fit than an Ogier ever will be. How about you tell us how people can contact you personally and not spoil you?
Well, you can just go to the library. I'll be walking around and having books, and then I'll start talking to you when you're driving. Oh, sorry. The way you can find me is on Twitter. Reach out to @FittenTrim. That's FITTENTRIM @FittenTrim on Twitter.
Speaking of spelling Twitter handles out overly, here we go. The word double, the letters PHQ. PHQ stands for Podcast Headquarters. Be sure to follow that podcast because they've got all kinds of great things coming up in the end of this year and for 2022.
Wow.
For instance, for 2022, I'll be doing His Dark Materials with Holly once again. We'll be doing season 5 of The Crown with Holly once again. Bubba and I will. But there's all kinds of Simon. Just chill out, Simon. It's okay. There's going to be lots of Catfish in 2022 as well.
Oh, hell
in fact,
yeah.
you're going to get Catfish way before 2022 comes. Okay, a couple days before 2022 comes. But Bubba and Catfish, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Parsec Passion is going to be up to at the end of this month?
In just 26 days from when we're recording this, Disney Plus is releasing the Book of Boba Fett.
Boom, boom, boom.
And we are going to be breaking down the new Star Wars show on Disney Plus from a deep, deep, deep old man feel. So if you want to know how two OGs, original fans of the Star Wars trilogy, feel about these new Disney Plus shows, check out the Parsec Passion podcast wherever you find great podcasts.
That's a triple P.
Parsec Passion podcast. If you don't download it, we'll throw you into a Sarlacc pit.
Woo!
And you'll never get out of that.
Ever.
Yeah.
So, folks, at Blockbuster is the Twitter handle to find me. You can also email mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, MATTS audioblog@gmail.com, or you can simply leave comments on our YouTube below if you're watching us via YouTube. We thank you so much for your feedback. I'm really enjoying this season. I'm glad Bubba hasn't abandoned me. I don't know if Catfish will abandon me in the future or not, but we'll see. Simon, keep your fingers crossed.
I've done it before, and I can do it again.